It's my pleasure to close out Massachusetts Peace Actions Conference on prohibiting the first use of nuclear weapons. Thank you to Cole Harrison, Mass Peace Action, and all of the wonderful groups participating today for being such strong advocates for a sane nuclear weapons policy. A president once said, I can go into my office and pick up the telephone, and in 25 minutes, 70 million people will be dead. Those were the words of embattled former President Richard M. Nixon. And this chilling statement exposed the stark reality that no one can stop the commander-in-chief from ordering the end to millions of lives in a flash of light. The stated policy of other nuclear weapons powers leaves open the possibility that they too would reserve the right to use nuclear weapons first in a conflict. Another former President Donald J. Trump exemplified the folly of placing such awesome responsibility with one person alone. No person is infallible, especially Trump. It is time to no longer leave the fate of humanity to one human being. Deciding how we use the most destructive weapon ever created and against whom is not a partisan issue. It is a constitutional one. Our Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the exclusive power to declare war. Insisting upon a role for Congress is all the more important because the human consequences of a nuclear war are unlike any other type of war. That's why Representative Ten Lieu and I reintroduced our bill this year to ensure that the United States will not fire the first shot in a nuclear war, at least not without Congress declaring its first war since World War II. Fortunately, President Biden does not need to wait for Congress to make no first use U.S. policy. In fact, he can draw inspiration from his own words. In a January 2017 speech, he said that it's hard to envision a plausible scenario in which the first use of nuclear weapons by the United States would be necessary or make sense. He's right. Our conventional weapons capability are without rival. The threats we face today and those on the horizon do not require us to break the taboo on the use of nuclear weapons, which has stood for more than 75 years. But as long as nuclear weapons exist, we must also focus the debate on hardware, not just on when and how we use nuclear weapons. If we follow through in spending nearly $2 trillion on nuclear weapons over the next 3 decades, we will have made the world safe for nuclear weapons, not the world safe from nuclear weapons. Fortunately, President Biden has begun the process to edge us slightly closer to what President Obama called the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons by extending the New START treaty with Russia in his first weeks in the office. But that's not enough. It's time for a moonshot. It's time for a U.S. commitment to achieve not just a carbon-free future, but a nuclear weapons-free one, too. It's time to tell the so-called nuclear weapons priesthood who treat the status quo U.S. nuclear weapons policy as their gospel that fielding 5,000 nuclear weapons to make the rubble bounce over and over is insanity, an argument which I make in my SANE Act, which aims to bring our nuclear weapons budget back to earth. And that would be smarter to invest in so that we could ensure that we have a vaccine of mass prevention before a new, unnecessary, ground-based weapon of mass destruction, as Representative Kana and I outlined in our ICBM Act. But much like arresting the climate crisis, we just cannot get closer to retiring nuclear weapons through our actions at home alone. My HALT Act lays out a blueprint for U.S. action to achieve a nuclear weapons-free future, including by pursuing a global freeze on nuclear weapons production and their associated delivery vehicles, a verifiable fissile material treaty, a fissile material cutoff treaty, ahead of state-level nuclear disarmament summit, and work to bring the comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty into force. It's time to ratify the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. So we have a choice. We can either repeat the arms race of the 20th century, or we can lead the world away from one. We can either adopt a sane nuclear policy that takes its inspiration from the 1 million disarmament protesters who filled Central Park in 1982, or we can follow Dr. Strangelove. The choice is easy. Whether we can create a future where Americans and others will finally watch as the nuclear sword of Damocles is finally lifted from our heads, we have that choice. And we just have to keep our action levels high. This is our time. We control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So thank you for being activist leaders in our state, but for the whole nation. You are the example. And Mass Peace Action, you are just incredible what you've been able to do year after year, but now is the time. So I thank everyone who attended this conference for your tireless advocacy to shape a safer future. Thank you to Cole. Thank you to everyone who's participating today.